Welcome back to another recording of the Elevate Media Podcast. I'm Chris Anderson, your host, and I got to start off by saying I'm super excited, everybody. If you're watching this on YouTube, I hope you are. You're going to see we're finally in our new content studio that we've been working on tirelessly here recently. So it's our first episode in the new space. So super excited to have our guest on today. We're going to be talking about his journey and just the ups and downs of entrepreneurship and how he overcame and how faith is a big part of his journey and family. And so super excited to have our guest on today. We're going to be diving into all sorts of stuff. He's been in private markets for 25 years, done a lot of great stuff. I won't get too deep into his bio. We'll have that for you linked in the show notes. But super excited to have Jeremy Hill on the show today. Jeremy, welcome to the Elevate Media Podcast.
Mr. Anderson. Yeah. I'm excited to be here, dude. The new studio looks fantastic, man. Congratulations.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I love you open with Mr. Anderson. So I was just talking to someone the other day when I was in middle school. I had a substitute teacher, and this is a rabbit hole, guys. Sorry, but substitute teacher taking attendance, and he goes, "Mr. Anderson," and I was like, dude, what are you? Who are you? What are you talking about? And he's like, looked at me weird. He's like, "You've never seen Matrix, have you?" And I was like, "Nope." He's like, okay. So that was really weird. I was like, "Yep." He's like, and he explained it, but yeah, that's cool. So now I get the reference now. I've seen the Matrix.
Thank God. But all right, good. We can continue the conversation then. Okay.
Exactly. So yeah, back to something. But so yeah, man, I'm super excited. What to dive right into it. Private markets. Working in the private market, like for people who might not know what that means, because you've had 25 years experience in that, what is working in the private markets?
Well, I mean, think about stuff that's not traditional stocks and bonds, right? If you're looking at head over tackle, stocks and bonds and public markets and public equities in that kind of world, think about the opposite of that. And so private markets historically over the last, 30 years has been everything from non-traded real estate to private equity to small businesses to rich guys at the golf club putting a deal together to buy a apartment building or a small business or loan somebody money or that kind of thing, right? So just think about it as the opposite of what traditional level thinking, investing, and such is, right? And so that's now exploded over the last 15 or 20 years to not only include private equity and private debt and real estate, but now it includes crypto and royalty finance and NFTs and, thousands of different just ulterior alternative sources of capital are kind of making up what's known, I guess, on a macro level as the private market.
Okay. Now within this, and is that something like, for example, like if we were looking for investors into Elevate, is that something that's like private market, or is that something completely different, just like as far as like angel investors go versus private market?
Well, I mean, I would consider a lot of the angel investors private market investors, because Elevate as a whole is not a public entity, a publicly traded company. And so when you are looking for capital to grow Elevate or me to grow JV Capital or to do one thing or another, I'm not going to traditional public markets for access to capital. I'm going to private markets, and that private market could be a fund, a group of investors, an old rich guy, an angel investor, your neighbor, your brother-in-law, whatever that happens to be, right?
Yeah. So with that, how does that kind of, because we've considered it a little bit, we've looked at, SBA loans, we've looked at investors. What does that even kind of look like for a business as far as structuring that kind of quote unquote deal, that contract with maybe one or two investors? Do they get like equity in the company? I mean, I'm sure there's multiple ways to set it up, but what's kind of the average or normal way you see someone coming on to invest? I'm going to give you your business money because we see the value, but we want this in return, kind of thing.
Sure. I mean, the simplest thing is that there is no set way of doing things. How should Elevate raise money? You can do it 1,000 different ways, right? It's really what is important. It is to you, your partners, where it is that you're going with the business, what kind of partner you want, what kind of money you're looking for, a number of those things. In their most simplistic, forms, you're really either raising debt or selling equity, like kind of one or the other. Now there's a 1,000 different flavors of vanilla ice cream in each one of those buckets, but the reality is you're either borrowing money that says, great, hey, Chris, I want to borrow $100 and I'm going to pay X% interest until I pay that $100 back, and here's what I'm going to do with it, right? Or hey, Chris, invest $100 And for doing so, I'm going to give you 20% of my business, whatever that is, right? It's kind of one facet or another. And then in there, it's really, negotiating what's important to you, what kind of partner it is that you want, are they bringing anything more to the table than just money, right? Because if one of the things that we have in our business is that if for us, when we're investing in, Joe's, software business or whatever the company happens to do, if the only thing that we bring to the table is money, I shouldn't give it and you shouldn't take it, right? Like there needs to be something additionally accretive by way of my involvement in the business that helps you get to your point B faster. And I think that's what entrepreneurs and small businesses should look like, is that if I want to go grow my business and I need $100,000 or $1 million or $5 million or whatever the number is, right?
Yeah.
What does that look like? And who's on the other side of it? And are you just looking for money, or are you looking for somebody that can maybe make introductions, or that can maybe help you put a board together, can maybe solve some problems that you haven't encountered yet? And on and on and on and on. You need to think about those things before you decide, hey man, I just need $5 million and leave me alone, right?
Yeah. That's an interesting point, because like that's something I didn't think about, like because we, like I said, had considered, even a quarter of a mil or something like that as far as investments, but like the investor bringing more value for whatever they're getting in return. I didn't even kind of think about that. Like I said, we're early on this thought, but that's a good point. Like, what do they bring instead of just giving you money? How are they going to help it kind of, I guess, grow, almost like they have more weight in the game, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, if it's always just about money, somebody always has more. Somebody always has more money. Somebody's always taller, richer, better looking, whatever that happens to be, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's money is always cheaper than mine. And so it can't be just about money. For you, from a studio side of things, hey, we want to grow this media and publishing brand. I want to look at an investor that comes in, that by way of their money, they're also going to accelerate us getting the next 50 podcasts. They're going to accelerate us because they have a distribution platform and technology that'll grow my audience from, X to Y, something else. That's something beyond just dough, because somebody's always got more dough, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's a good point. Because we do the video podcast production, we do brand story production, and then we do event production or event productions as well. And so it's like, okay, maybe it's someone who has the money, but also has events or knows people who does events, or that's a good thing to think about for sure. So if we were to find those people or connect with those type of people, what's the best way to structure that kind of proposal to show the value of the company is worth them investing in monetarily and with their time and energy as well?
All of it is figuring out a way to take what it is that you're doing with your business and articulate it in a fashion enough that is compelling for somebody else to want to be involved.
Okay. Yep.
I think, there's that old saying, as you ask somebody for money, you get advice. And if you ask somebody for advice, you might get some money, that kind of thing. Right. Oftentimes when you go and you're going to pitch, and, hey, Chris, I got a deal for you, and call today, don't delay, and all this other kind of stuff, right? The thing is that you get is a lot of advice.
Yeah.
And, rather a lot of times shaping what it is that you're raising capital is looking at, hey, we're really trying to grow this platform, and here's what it is that we're thinking. Here's what it is that we think we need, and here's what we think we're going to do with it. And the business is going to go from A to B to C because of those kinds of things.
Okay.
Chris, you guys have built a big media business. Here's what it is that we're trying to do with ours. Is there anything it is that you see in our plan right now, it is that I should avoid or that I should pour gas on, right? Asking for that kind of advice, right? Having the guide get involved, be kind of emotionally connected to the story of what it is that you're trying to do, either with your media business or my investment business or Joe's software business or whatever people are trying to do, right? And that emotional connection to what it is that you're doing may either engender better quality advice, or it may engender, here's what it is that I think you should do, Chris. And oh, by the way, I want you to talk to a friend of mine, John, because here's what it is that he does on XYZ that might be able to help, right? Now I have an advocate for what it is that I'm doing that's putting me on, that may be either a client, a customer, an investor, a partner, a friend, something it is there. And I find that is better than just, hey, give me money and I promise I won't screw it up.
Yeah, right. I think that's huge. I think that's a great relationship to kind of build with those involved, because then you're all kind of, it's not just kind of a, here it is, like you said, good luck type of thing. It's like, I think Shark Tank almost, like they come in, they invest, and then they're also going to guide, or they're going to open up networks, and things of that nature.
That's the pitch, anyways. We'll see.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's awesome. So for you though, like, um, you grew up in Texas, right?
I was born and raised West Texas, and so I grew up born and raised in Lubbock, and so it's one of those places that if you forget your name, you just look down at your belt. It's probably written on your belt buckle on the front or the back somewhere. Either way, right? So,
Yeah.
it was,
So, little Jeremy, did you ever think you're gonna get in a private market,
dude.
investment stuff? What did little Jeremy wanna do back then?
Um, Little Jeremy, I'm sure through varying stages of being little Jeremy, probably wanted to be a soccer player or a fireman or something cool, right?
Yeah.
As I got older, I actually wanted to be a doctor. And I loved math, science, all things kind of biology. I love Jacques Cousteau and National Geographic and just
Nice.
learning about shit. I just
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah.
Um, and then when I was growing up too, I don't know if I actually wanted to be a doctor, but I remember growing up and every time I was with my mom or with my grandparents and we were out to lunch after church or we were at the country club or we went to play golf or we went to play tennis or we went to just do whatever it is that you do growing up. I like have these vivid memories as a child it is of being with my grandfather. My grandfather would be like, "Oh, you see so and so over there? That's John, whatever it is. He's a doctor."
Right.
Or you're out and we'd always drive after Sunday church and we'd go to the Cadillac dealership because that's what grandparents do, and then we drive out and look at houses in the country club and they're like, "Oh, see that house over there, that's Dr. So-and-so's house. You see that over there? Oh yeah, that's his daughter. Oh, you remember that girl you were playing tennis with? Oh yeah, that's Dr. So-and-so's daughter." And I was just like, I don't know if I necessarily wanted to be a doctor, but I wanted people to talk about me
Mm.
the way that they talked about the doctors in the community.
Yeah.
I wanted to be important, whatever the hell that means, right?
Right.
I wanted to have a nice house and a nice car and a pretty wife and have influence in the community and be respected and those kinds of things. And when I was growing up, that was the doctor, and I was like, well, I guess I want to be a doctor, dude. I don't
Right.
want to be a doctor. All the school and bullshit and insurance and all. No, dude, not at all.
Yeah.
But I did want that stuff, and
Yeah.
so I went to university and with the intent it is and going pre-med and ended up dropping out between my junior and senior year. Met
Huh.
my wife and a few years later started a business and I guess have desperately trying to be important and well respected and trying to make a dent for those people around me since. So
Yeah, that's cool. Now you mentioned, spend time with your mom and your grandparents, uh, and it sounds like your grandfather was a big piece, to your upbringing a little bit.
yeah, he was a cool dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this
Tell me a little about.
what's that? This painting in my office was in his. He had an architecture and engineering firm in the state of Texas that did stuff all over, and that painting was in his office since the '40s. And
Wow.
so I remember growing up with that, to where every time I'd go to his office, or whatever, as a kid,
Mm,
and play around on all the little sketching tables and stuff like that. That was always behind him, and so for some reason, I guess that's behind me now. So
that's awesome.
yeah.
So how did he impact you, into who you are today?
He was a different generation then.
Yeah.
You know, the generation today is wearing Jordans and basketball shorts and Beavis and Butthead t-shirts. Trying to be a leader and an influencer, and you're
Yep.
like, dude, fucking just
Yep.
brush your hair, please, God,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that generation then, it was there was a different level of being a gentleman and being well spoken and being educated and being well read and having manners and being polite. And we've gone through a different time now to where those things necessarily aren't frowned upon,
Right.
but they are not lauded, applauded, and rewarded like they should be.
Right.
I think that's one. That generation worked hard. They took care of their family. They dressed well. They spoke well. They were respected. They had a good degree of friends. I'm sure that there was all sorts of crap going on at the time, right? So I'm certainly not romanticizing it
Right.
any different, but it was a different generation. And so he had a really good impact on me as just kind of a stand-up guy in the community, right?
Mm,
He worked hard. He always spoke well of my grandmother. He always feel like it is that he did his best to teach and to love and to lead his kids. My father passed away when I was really young, and my parents got divorced when I was 2. I met my dad when I was 12. He died when I was 20. And so
Oh,
my father, if you will, when I was growing up, was my grandfather. And
yeah.
so when I was young, my grandfather wore a suit and tie 7 days a week, so I like to dress. Like
Yeah.
I have a disproportional amount of suits and ties than a normal human being should have, right? You know, and grew up listening to Frank Sinatra and Perry Como,
Oh,
and Martin and Paul
nice.
Anka and this kind of thing. So when I started dating my wife, she's like, "Dude, how old are you? Like I'm
That's
hanging out with my parents' friends, like what's going
that's
on?"
awesome.
And but he was a really good man and just one of my favorite people. So
That's awesome. That's really cool. And it's so the crazy thing is, so I feel like we have a lot in common. You have a couple years on me, but I love Frank Sinatra. I love that. I think like I would dress in a suit every day if it was not so now, if it was not so outside the norm.
yeah,
Um, like, I just love that. I love that aesthetic. I'm trying to teach my boys a little bit of it with
yeah,
they're young. So having Frank Sinatra play, having Perry Como, having who did we just listen to the other day?
Dean
Dean
Martin,
Martin.
Tony
Yep,
Bennett, such a good
yep,
stuff. Yeah,
yep, yep. So just old soul. I just feel like that was my time.
yeah,
And I wish the suits, I wish that stuff would come back. I love wearing my grandma. Uh, was a big part of my life, and, she would say that you're not wearing a suit if you don't have a vest. And so, like, I love the three-piece, having the vest and the suit when I'm wearing it, and, yeah, I wish we'd go back to that time where dressing nice was the norm.
yeah.
'Cause I don't know, I
It's
think people just took more pride in themselves and how they looked and how they, felt and were healthy?
Well, you plain and simple do. I mean, it's not a costume.
Right.
But if I'm gonna go to the gym, I'm wearing gym clothes.
Right.
I'm not wearing a
Yep.
suit to the gym.
Right.
People seem to have forgotten that though when they're working or doing business. Like it's like I'm in Arizona. It's 90
Hot.
degrees, and here in a couple of months
Uh-huh.
it's going to be 115. Right?
Yeah.
Like nobody's rocking out a three-piece wool suit at
Right,
115.
right.
Like, brother, it's hot.
Yeah.
But there are ways it is to take pride in the way it is that you dress. And the reality
100%.
of it is when you have a good shave and you have a good haircut and you have a nice watch and you're taking pride in your appearance and that kind of thing, your mental game is different in how it is that you show up to work, whether that's a meeting, whether that's an interview, podcast, getting to know each other this way, or whether it's just your own like discipline of the day of working. When I'm
Yep.
in a mode it is and taking pride in the way it is that I do, you simply just show up better,
Yep.
right? You just do. And so I compliment you for that thinking and encourage you to a day a week, maybe rock it out and dress it up. So
Yeah, I love that. No, I'd like that challenge for sure. So, and we just got a maybe that's what we just got a new it's called 1933 Lounge. It's like,
cool.
it's got a cool older aesthetic to it, type thing. And maybe that day, maybe I'll go network there and,
Love it.
uh, take that time because 'cause it's got that cool old kind of feel that I really like.
I'll be
So
waiting for my invitation. That sounds
right, there
awesome.
we go. Alright, yeah. And it's brand new one, so it's not far from here. So that's
Nice.
cool. But, you know, through you talk about me and your wife, right?
Yeah.
Um, what was that like? Because you're going for becoming a doctor, you dropped out, you had, um, Christine, right? I believe is her name.
Yeah, that's right.
How how is that relationship going with you dropping out, starting a business? Like, because I quit my job, tried to start a business shortly after getting married to my wife.
Mm.
So, like, what did that look like for you, and her and that because it's not easy.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, what that kinda look like with you guys?
Yeah, so we met between my junior and senior year of university, um, and then we're married. We met and married in about 18 months. And
Okay,
so
wow.
the minute it is that I convinced her, like I told her I was going to be rich and famous and good looking, and like stick with
Yeah,
me, baby, it's going to be great. And
right.
the minute that she was dumb enough to believe me, I was like ready to lock it
Let's
down,
do
right?
it. Let's
Before
go.
she changes her mind, let's lock it.
Right, yeah.
And So we have our 29th wedding anniversary coming up here in a couple of months,
Congrats.
which is pretty awesome. Going through those kind of changes and just, it's maturing and growing up, because I mean, like I've spent more of my life with my wife than without her, and her the same, right? So there's few memories that I have that don't include her. And going back to that time to where it is we're kind of transitioning through school, and what do you want to be when you grow up, and how am I going to, now I'm getting married, and how am I going to take care of this woman and eventually a family, and make sure it is that she continues to feel good about her decision, and that her parents are like, okay, you didn't marry some schmuck, and my
Right.
parents are going crazy because I dropped out of school. And the reality is that we screwed it up a lot.
Yeah.
You're young and you're dumb and you're
Yeah.
broke and you don't have a ton of leadership, from either side of the family. So, like, dude, what did you think was going to happen? Like, you
Right.
do you think you're just going to keep like,
Yeah.
no, it's you're figuring it out as you're growing and you're maturing. And so there's a lot of things
Right.
it is that I did wrong that we could have done better.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing it is for us, as we were figuring out what to do with business and figuring out where we wanted to live, and how we wanted to live and who we wanted to be, and that kind of a thing, is that we just simply always came back and chose each other. Right? Is that it didn't matter if I was a doctor or a ditch digger or plumber or bartender or whatever it is, my wife chose me.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing it is for me, right? Is that I didn't know or care really where I was going to be, what I was going to do, still trying to figure out what Jeremy was going to be when, he was old and wise and all that other bullshit, right? But
Right.
whatever
Right.
that was going to look like, I wanted her beside me. And I think those were the things it is that we found that were most important, regardless of, how long it took us to figure the other things out.
Yeah. What would you say would be your biggest piece of advice for someone starting out who's married, maybe just got married, they're trying to start a business, because it's a rocky road, it's up and down, it's a roller coaster, to keep that relationship healthy along that kind of roller coaster of entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Throw balance out the window. Everybody's like, you have to find balance.
Oh, yeah.
That's the dumbest
Get
thing
up
I've
by
ever heard.
harmony.
Right?
Harmony is the luckiest you can
Yeah,
find.
that's
Yeah.
some Instagram bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Like, throw that out. You're going to be out of balance, and it's okay. The thing it is that I would tell you is to over communicate with your spouse, right? Like, about things. And then make sure it is that you guys are having some time, right? Like, you can work 7 days a week, so long. Like, I pretty much work 7 days a week. I don't work Sundays
Right.
very often, but I definitely work Saturdays, and I work all through the week. But I try to make sure it is that my wife and I get just a one-on-one lunch together for a couple of hours during the week. It is to just be with each other. We get at least an hour or two at the end of the night. It is to just kind of sit down and hold hands and just, talk or listen to music or have a glass of wine or do whatever it is to just kind of, decompress and just have a little bit of time to reconnect with each other. And it doesn't always happen, and we're not always perfect,
Right.
but we're conscious of those things. And so a lot of times too, it is that I would tell you that do not get disillusioned that the job or the business is more important than your wife. The reality is, and nobody's going to like to hear this, brother, it's just a fucking job.
Yep.
It's just a job.
Yep.
And the reality is, you will have a bigger impact on your community, on your life, on your children, on your wife, and that kind of thing when you make your wife a priority and not your job. Right.
Absolutely.
So the job is important. The business is important. Making money, getting ahead, being successful, doing all those kinds of things. Yes, it is hugely important, but it is not more important than sacrificing your wife and your kids, your integrity, your character, your family, your legacy, and those kind of things along the way.
Your health. Yeah.
Not your health. Another for sure. Yeah.
That's good. I love that. Yeah. Cause like from my perspective, like it's kind of like, God, my health, like me and my health. I know that sounds selfish, but like if I get sick and can't help around, like everything else crumbles. So like God, myself, care, health, right close. And then next would be my wife. And they're almost kind of like even, and it would be the kids, and then it's business, and then it's kind of trickles down from there. So, and I think, faith is a big part of your journey, right?
Yeah.
So how does that play a role for you? I know kind of how it does for me, but how does that play a role for you through these years of building business and doing all this?
I think, just like your relationship with your spouse and just like, the time and tenure in your business goes through seasons, you
Mm,
know, for a lot of people, me included, my relationship with God has gone through the same things.
yeah.
There's been times to where it's been spring, summer, winter, fall, right? There's been
Yep.
times to
Yep.
where it is that, Game of Thrones, winter is coming, to where it's just
Right.
cold,
Right.
right? And there's times where you're feeling really in flow.
Mm,
For the last uh, probably 2 to 3 years, like um, my spiritual life's been really, really good. And there's been times over history it is with my wife and I that it's been better. There's been times that it's been distant. I don't think people get confused with the fact it is that just because you show up and go to church every Sunday means you have a good relationship with God.
right.
Church is full of the most hypocritical people in the world, right?
Yep.
Most hypocritical and judgmental people in the world. And some
Yeah.
of the best people it is that I know that have the strongest relationship it is with their father don't go to church on Sundays.
Right.
Like, I mean, we grew up in Texas and these farmers, spend, 6, 7 days a week on a tractor by themselves for 10 hours a day. Who do you think they're talking to?
Yep.
So, um, for me, constantly making sure it is that I am, I'm getting fed,
Mm,
that I am learning, that I'm making sure that my alignment is good because it's really, it's up to me to care for, to lead, to love, to provide, um, for my wife and my children. And so if I'm not doing so, and if I'm not in alignment and I'm not working on my relationship it is with God, then how can I expect to feed and to lead
yeah.
them? And
Yeah.
so um, I've definitely become more aware of that, more conscious of that, and I'm spending time there, making sure it is that my soul's fed, so I can take care of my family.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so important. Yeah, because you can't fill someone up with an empty cup, right? You can't pour
totally.
out anything if you're empty.
Yep.
And I think that plays with health, with your spiritual life and your relationships too. So, and this sounds like that's a big piece for you is like wanting to kind of have a legacy mentorship type thing or so with your business, um, let's talk about that. You started your own business, right? JB Capital, if I'm not
That's correct.
mistaken.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
right.
so entrepreneurs, we're solving problems. What is like the big problem you're passionate about solving that led you to starting JB Capital?
It's funny, man. I've had a bunch of introspection on this lately because there's some
Okay.
new opportunities that are coming
Mm,
uh, into my life that is kind of causing me to kind of reflect back and get more of a picture of what am I supposed to do in this world, or what kind
yeah.
of deal am I supposed to make? And I think ultimately the core of it is to feel like it is that I am paying attention, uplifting, and breathing life into those people that are either underrepresented or not being helped. And that kind of manifested in my business with JB Capital 20, almost 5 years ago,
Wow.
is that I was finding that there was this group of people it is that were small businesses, right? It was either, mom and dad with 20 trucks and, an electrician or something like that,
Right.
home
Yep.
builder, a guy that had just started a software business or whatever it was.
Yep.
And there was this growing, burgeoning group of people it is that were kind of past that friends and family, mom and dad would jump around and raise money,
Yeah.
but they really weren't yet to a point to where large institutional smart money could actually afford to pay attention to them. Because if Chris and Jeremy didn't need to borrow 50 or 80 or 100 or 200 million, we needed to borrow 3 or 4 or 5. That was such a weird check that, 3, 4, 5 million bucks in the community for the local rich guy to do by himself. Dude, that's a big chunk of dough. But
Yeah.
$5 million for anybody with any institutional money, they don't give a shit. They don't care. Like
Right.
$5 million is like the Christmas party budget.
Yep.
And so for those companies that were there, like who helped them?
Mm,
And so we got really good at solving those problems because I found that there was this big group of people that just were kind of left to fend for themselves.
okay.
And so that's really been the thesis of what JB Capital has been for 25 years, is that solving problems and kind of acting as a guide, a mentor, a leader, somebody to kind of coach them through this process of how to understand what types of capital it is that there are, making sure that you're making the good decisions, bringing on the right types of partner, and understanding that kind of underneath of things by what those contracts and agreements make, to
Yeah.
make sure that they're not getting taken advantage of and they can access the capital that they want. We've done a really good job of that to the tune now in 24 or 5 years. It's a little bit better than $2 billion.
Wow.
That's manifested now more in what it is that we've started doing with this kind of men's leadership groups. It is that we've been doing now that is gaining more attention than I thought. And so it's still that same underlying tenet there of working with and coaching these men that are, feeling the weight of life. They're feeling the weight and kind of the gravity of what's going on when you've got, your employees count on you, and your wife counts on you, and your kids count on you, and your community counts on you. And as your parents are getting older now, your parents are counting on you, and this weight just gets heavy, brother. And so it's, what do you do with that? And then when when you need something strong to lean on, where do I go?
Right.
And we started talking about that maybe a year ago, and the response to it has been something it is that I did not expect. And so I think it is that for me, it's really, again, going back, whether it's business and small business and finance and this kind of thing, or whether it's men it is that are growing up and struggling with the responsibilities of life that just need a little extra oxygen in their life for them to keep going. That, I think, for me, is what it is that we're supposed to be doing. So
that's awesome. I love that mission. That's really cool. And I think, because heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? For those business owners. And like we mentioned earlier, like, we're in such a different time of like what masculinity, quote unquote, should look like and what it really should look like. And that's, I think we've drifted from what we should actually be as leaders, as men. And so I think it's cool what you're doing to be able to lift those men up and guide them and give them, a place to kind of figure it out together.
Thank you.
It sounds like, which is cool. Yeah, that's really awesome. And so, like, that, I mean, right there, it sounds like you're building that legacy. So with that, like, what are some of the most important things? If you were talking to like some young men today, younger than me, I'm 33. So,
good Lord. Do your parents know you're here? Good Lord.
Right. I know curfews. No, just kidding. But if we're talking to like, 18, 20-year-olds, young men today, about things that are missing from male leaders, or things that we need to be reminded of, what would you kind of lay on their hearts, or like put out there for them to realize?
Yeah. What's interesting is what it is that we're seeing now is this generation of this kind of, 16 to 24, 25-year-olds now, as we're recording this, is really finding masculinity and kind of the truth of masculinity being attractive, right? They want to be in the gym. They want to listen to country music, drive big trucks, drink whiskey, smoke cigars, get tattoos, take care of their women, be honest. They want to go to church. They're not interested in porn. They're not like all of the generation before, morons, right? A bunch of these guys running around, drinking fucking almond milk and, trying to fight guys with a trash can lid and a pool noodle,
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Like, something wrong with you, for sure. So I think today, we're seeing this kind of, this resurrection it is towards value that is wonderful. And so, you got guys that are going to church not because it's in vogue or in fashion, but it is that they want that connection. It is with something bigger than themselves. It is that can provide kind of leadance and structure and guidance in their life, where they may not have that or get that either from a dad or an uncle or a grandfather, or somebody strong it is that they have, right? They're looking at those things. You're seeing it as, across this too, is that there's this big return it is to Americana and small businesses. When I was their age and coming out, it was go, get your education, whatever it is, try to get into B school and get your ass to New York or London to try to go for Goldman. Right? Or Goldman or Morgan or something like that. Go to work for one of these big banks, get in there, pay your dues for 5 years. You're going to make a shitload of money, and then you can write your ticket. My kids are all of college age right now. I do not want them going to Harvard, Columbia, Yale, any of these universities.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I don't want you at Goldman. I don't want you at any of these houses. I'd rather you just take that, you and I learn some stuff. I'll put the money together and let's go buy a plumbing business. Like
Yeah.
there is
Yes.
that return to this generation. It is that
Yep.
gives me hope for this kind of next 25 or 30 years of what's going to happen in the States. I'm really bullish about that.
Yeah. 100%. I agree. And I think we got to the point, I was super, super blessed to have a great family, great parents with a dad who worked so hard, instilled great values, like what we're talking about right now, and grandparents as well.
Love it.
Um, like that and just instilled that just worked with their hands, that got stuff done. And so like that's what I'm trying to instill on my boys because we see so much in culture today of comfort. Like, and
Mhm.
I think there's a point, yes, there is something good with efficiency and having that kind of comfort or like ease of systems, but there's still a time where you just have to put your head down and just, work through it and put in the reps or, uh, you know, do the hard things, right? Still, we can't make everything
Yeah.
easy.
No,
Uh,
and it shouldn't be because
right.
there's the old saying that we've all become very familiar with over this last 4 or 5 years about hard times create soft men and soft men
Yep.
create hard times, right? And that whole circle,
Yep.
and that's what it is that we're seeing
So
here.
true.
Like
Yeah.
it shouldn't be soft. Like
No.
there is nothing good that comes without struggle.
Yep.
And so, the things it is for you and your young boys, I've got two sons and a daughter. And the things it is that we look at is you want to celebrate and be proud and wear as a badge of honor the
Yeah.
struggle, right? Like I am not going to get the physique and the body and the level of fitness it is that I want unless when I'm in the gym it actually hurts. Because if
Hurts.
you leave the gym and I'm not sore, you're just going through the motions, dude. Like what
Yep.
do you like? Just stay in bed, right? Like don't.
Yep.
Same thing with your business. The same thing in making decisions in your friendships, right? Like if there's
Yeah.
something there to where it is that you're not standing up and having a backbone that somebody can see from the front, you're
Yeah.
missing something, brother. You need to have a degree of character there to where it is that it is unquestionable and unshakable about the person and the man and the beliefs and the standards it is that you have. And if I have that and you have that, then my boys are going to see that.
100%. I think it's the point of like, um, people don't understand as they try to build a business that it's going to hurt. It's going to be hard. I heard it, new levels, new devils. So you have to basically get to the point where you just deal with that pain in a good fashion. Like it's going to, every time you get to a new level, it's going to be there's going to be discomfort. It's going to be stretch you. It's going to be like, "Oh my gosh, like now it's these problems." And you just get good to adapting and dealing with those. But the
Mhm.
pain is like it's almost like you always have growing pains. Like as you're growing as a person like physically hurt, like you're going to continually have that through the whole business. You just get better to adapting to it or you're being able to build a team that can help support when those things happen.
Yeah.
Um and that's just life, I think, and we just don't want to have the pain, and so people look for releases or avoidance instead of just dealing with it and getting stronger, and I think, like you said, we're seeing a resurgence of coming back to, like, "No, it's gonna suck, it's gonna be hard, I'm gonna enjoy the journey anyways and just deal with it, and, like, great things are gonna come."
Yeah. Agreed. You need
Uh,
to you need to wear the struggle as a badge of honor,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It's
I
not a,
think because 'cause we've been told not to, like, "Oh, it's not a bad draw." Like, no, like, it is, like, you've overcome, like, you've
yeah,
weathered the storm.
agreed.
So that's cool. So, I kinda wanna finish with, like, some rapid fire questions, these would be good, hopefully. Recently, do you have a favorite book, that's been super impactful to you?
Yeah, I've probably given it out 20 times. If you haven't read Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, like
Not
go
yet,
read
I have
it. Awesome. Dude, I'll send it to you right after this.
not.
It's
Oh, that'd be
it's
awesome.
fantastic. Great book.
Cool. Yeah, I looked at it, I just haven't pulled the trigger. Okay. One habit or discipline that keeps you grounded?
Fitness journey, right? Like going to the gym, right?
Yep.
Um, that's become more and more important to me, and especially over the last couple of years. And so, uh, if I don't go to the gym today, it feels weird. And so that's usually
Okay.
how I start my day.
That's awesome. I love that. And then last one on this, if everything was taken away, all your accolades, all anything you've done was stripped away and you were gonna leave the world with one thing to remember you by, or remember of you, what would that one thing be?
Your children.
Yeah.
I want my beliefs and my dreams and my struggles and my challenges and my standards for what it is that I hope my life will leave to live on through my children. And so that's extraordinarily important to us, and we spend a ton of time thinking about and sowing time into those things, so that God forbid if today is my last day on earth, it is that my kids live on and do great things.
Yeah, I love that. You know, I think we're like the one person in a guy's life that wants to see them do better is a
Oh,
dad and their sons. Like
yeah,
that's how I look at it. I'm like, I want them to learn and be better than me and do
yeah.
better
We,
than me. So I
we,
love that answer. Jeremy, this has been great. Super awesome conversation. Really, really have enjoyed this. If people want to get connected with you, maybe they're at the point where you're able to help them either through investments or through that men's group. Where's the best place for them to connect with you and learn more or just stay connected with you?
sure. So anywhere on social, just Jeremy B Hill or the Jeremy B Hill. LinkedIn and Instagram is pretty easy. You can jump on the website, or you can look us up at JB Capital as well. We're pretty easy to find.
Awesome. But yeah, everyone, make sure you definitely get connected, continue to learn from Jeremy. And yeah, just if it's the right time, yeah, just seek him out, connect with him. Load of knowledge and value there. So, uh, and then share this episode. If you haven't followed the show, go do that, and then share this with someone else who is in their entrepreneurial journey. I think there's a lot of value here, because if you do that, we can help so many more people together, and get this to so many people, more people's eyes and ears. And yeah, just appreciate everyone doing that and for tuning in. Um, until next time, continue to go out there, elevate your life, elevate your brand, and we'll talk to you later.